Welcome to Raw Politique. My name is Mary Nazzal, and today we are honored to have with us on the show Francesca Albanese. Francesca needs no introduction, and today we have some very important news to announce. Francesca, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So the news that we have to announce is that Francesca's daughter, as represented by her father, has lodged a lawsuit against the Trump administration. Francesca, tell us about the case.
Yes, it's a very important day for us, for me as a mother, first and foremost. Because, I'm known as a special rapporteur. I've been documenting Israel's violations in the occupied Palestinian territory for over 3 years, and especially these past 2 years have been devastating, because watching and being a witness, even from afar, of what the Palestinians have gone through, first and foremost in Gaza, but also in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and what has been done worldwide, especially in the global north, to silence the movement, the brewing movement that from everywhere rose against the genocide has been really painful. And it's also painful for me to be here in Jordan. I should be in Palestine right now, interviewing the survivors of Israel's torture. And I'm here in Jordan because I cannot enter Palestine. So, and it's incredible on the one hand to carry the pain of an entire people, because it touches us. And at the same time, being punished for being a voice mandated by the United Nations to document and report on the violations of international law.
Actually, tell us about the punishment for people who don't know. What does it actually mean to be designated?
Yeah, because of my work, I've been sanctioned by the United States on the 9th of July. So there are a few things I need the audience is to know. First of all, the sanctions are an extreme measure and a very powerful measure that the U.S. legal system has to punish people who represent a threat to the United States. And they're a very important tool to stop authoritarian regimes, authoritarian leaders, drug dealers, terrorists, to harm U.S. citizens. Now, in this last year, the U.S. administration has sanctioned ICC, so International Criminal Court, judges and prosecutors. Right. Myself, a UN person protected under the Convention on Privileges and Immunities for the work I do on Palestine, and 4 Palestinian human rights organizations, the most important actors documenting violations of international law taking place in the occupied Palestinian territory. What do we have in common? Nothing else than the fact of working to achieve justice, to have international law respected, human rights respected, and justice for the victims. So, formally, the U.S. administration has extended to me and the Palestinian NGOs an executive order that imposes sanctions, so a travel ban and financial sanctions, which means that the sanctioned persons, the designated persons, cannot have a bank account, cannot be part of the financial world system. So we are cut out, basically. But why? Because of the criminal proceedings that have been started against Israel and its accomplices, private or public, represent a threat to the United States. How it's possible that the justice that the U.S. has contributed to build from Nuremberg to today is a threat to the United States? The thing is that I could have stopped here, and I would have expected the United Nations to actively defend me. But in the face of decline and fear, this has not happened. So the sanctions for the past 7 months have caused tremendous harm and distress to my entire family, to my daughter, who's an American citizen, and my husband, who works for a US-based organization. We cannot travel to the US, but they, because of their affiliation to me, can incur in a felony that implies up to 20 years in jail and up to $1 million fine. And this, by the way, is also what other US persons, universities, individuals risk to incur for dealing with me. So the chilling effect is clear. This criminalization of my parental bonds with my daughter and discriminalization of my family ties. It had to be addressed, Mary. This is the starting.
But let me ask you a question. You mentioned that in your position, you have immunity. You should have diplomatic protection, right? So when these sanctions were placed on you, when you became designated, would it not have been the role of the United Nations to take action like this?
Sure. Yes. Yes, because, you know, as a UN independent expert, I volunteer my time, my commitment, my skills to analyze the facts taking place in the occupied Palestinian territory according to international law, and then deliver in forms of analysis and recommendations to the General Assembly and the Human Rights Council. And me, like other independent experts, do so on the basis of trust that our work is protected as not just as protected speech in the United States, because this is also the issue, but as I'm protected in the discharge of my functions by the United Nations. So what happens is the United Nations has asserted my privileges and immunities with the United States. This is what I'm told, but the sanctions have not been removed. So over 40 independent experts, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the Coordinating Committee for the Special Procedures, and dozens of states have asked the United States to remove my sanctions. But in fact, we live in a system, or we live in an era or in a phase, historical phase of huge decline and paralysis of the United Nations. I mean, this is yet another case. The United Nations itself is under attack. Look at UNRWA. UNRWA, first and foremost, is under attack. I don't think it's adequately protected by the United Nations. And yes, we could have seen member states or even the Secretary General advocating for a case to be filed before the ICJ, for example, against the United States for breach of the Convention on Privileges and Immunities, but also more pressure. I don't think that it's been there. I've been left alone. This is something that people should understand. It's been extremely, extremely distressing, but I've been left alone, and I can deal with it personally with great difficulty because it's really indecent to expect that someone, a person, also my age, I depend financially on others right now. I cannot access my earnings. Right. So it's already difficult as is, but also the fact of having my family members having to endure this and the psychological pressure, the stress, we need to put an end to it. And I trust the justice system, Mary. Bottom line, I said, look at the Palestinians. With all the hurdle they have faced, they've trusted the International Criminal Court, the international justice system, treaty bodies, special procedures. And I am the same. I trust the system. I trust the international justice system and also, frankly, the US justice system. So hopefully justice will be delivered.
So let's turn to the details of the case. As I mentioned, your daughter, as represented by your husband, is the plaintiff in this case, lodged in the District of Columbia.
It's both of them, in fact.
Both of them, yeah. But because she's 12 years old. What is the significance of having her be the primary plaintiff?
She's a U.S. person. I mean, the Trump administration, on top of, again, as I said, criminalizing my family bond, has hampered her because there is a clear violation of the First Amendment, right. The right of free speech. I mean, I do not expect the U.S. administration to agree with me or with my findings, but sanctioning me after attacking me and accusing me with spurious allegations of anti-Semitism, supporting terrorism, justifying, they've said horrible things that were already trespassing what is acceptable from a member state. And this is where I think that the UN has not protected me adequately. I resent saying that. But other than the High Commissioner for Human Rights recently or special procedures and individual member states, I think that not enough has been said. Every time, I respect so much the Secretary General, but the fact of, the distance that has been taken from me has been literally read as, literally has been said, we don't agree with much of what she says. You don't need to agree. You need to assert my privileges and immunities and act upon it.
That's right.
So this feeling of being left alone among the wolves has made me feel so fragile. It has impacted my daughter as well, because for the past 6 months, although, I mean, we have managed, including during the genocide, to stay calm, to stay, to maintain an atmosphere of sanity for our children. Eventually, the anxiety of the financial situation, the threats against me, against my husband, it does create harm to us in a phase where my daughter is adolescent, pre-adolescent, and it's affecting her. And we have spoken with her, and she was saying, how come we cannot protect ourselves? And I said, we can. I cannot go to court myself because I've asked the United Nations to do this for me, and it's not possible. And she said, don't we have other tools? It's you, Leila. It's you. Do you feel like taking this on your shoulders with Daddy? And we explained, we have spoken with her at length, and she said, of course. I mean, she has a bit of that fire of resisting bullying.
I wonder where she got it from, Francesca.
I wonder. You should meet my husband, Mary. Yeah, that's a family.
Well, it's incredible, and more power to her and to your husband. I want to just mention to the audience who's been named, so who you're suing, which they are President Trump, Attorney General, the Secretary of the Treasury, and Secretary of State. And you have raised it on 8 grounds. So maybe just take us briefly through what the grounds are. You mentioned freedom of speech already.
Yeah, look, I can just make it very accessible for people who do not want to get into the nitty-gritty of the technicalities.
Sure.
My family is suing the U.S. administration on various grounds, but first of all, we think that again, they are acting against the sanctions because they are an infringement of free speech. They create harm. They create harm both psychologically, but also financially, because our apartment in Washington, D.C. has been frozen.
Right.
And we have tried in the month that we had after the sanctions were imposed on me after I was designated as a sanctioned person to sell it, and we were stopped. So there is something extremely harsh on us, on her, the uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen. Again, the closure of my financial connections, the impairing me. Yes, the U.S. has given me a license basically to pay the fees of my daughter's school because she goes to an American school. She's American educated. She's receiving. So this is why it's so interesting, because if you listen to my daughter, she sounds more American than Italian, which is interesting. And then the patrimonial damage that is done. But broader than this, we think that the overall system is completely unfair because the executive order, and we have consulted several lawyers, several legal experts. This executive order imposed on the ICC and also then extended to me and then the NGOs, it looks very much like unconstitutional. And so we triggered. My family decided to trigger the judicial system in the U.S. to look at what's happening in the U.S., how the fundamental freedoms of American U.S. citizens are being used, invoked, and twisted in the pursuit of shielding the crimes of a close ally to the United States. Again, here, no one is calling for the destruction of anyone, any state. We are just asking for the compliance with international law. So much has been said against me and against my functions, and this is a clear operation, a clear propaganda operation to distract the attention from what I say and my findings, which are never attacked, they're never touched, and drag the debate elsewhere. So the controversy is to be about the person and not about the facts. But there is a human rights movement that has formed globally from the US, Europe. This is why I say it's not the West against the rest.
Sure.
And it's sustained, of course, from people and also government. Look at South Africa and others in the global South. There is an entire movement towards justice. This is a moment of rupture. I've said it over and over these days in Jordan, and we can talk about that. But we need to start by acknowledging that here what is asked is that through my work, that of the ICC and Palestinian NGOs and others, is that Israel respects international law. Enough with permanent occupation, which is declared illegal by the International Court of Justice, enough with apartheid, enough with impunity that has made it possible, with the complicity and the profiteering of private actors and someone in the public sector alike.
What's incredible about what you're doing is we are operating in a state of lawlessness, that has allowed the US Zionist Alliance to do what it's doing. But you, as a person of law, dignity, values, and vision, have decided to use the legal route, not just for you, even though I hear it's a very personal case, but for everyone. For every voice of justice, you are saying, we will not be silenced. And I think at this moment, the strength of this case is so important because we are in a battle for the future. So I really commend you, Francesca, on this case.
Mary, there are two things that I'm thinking, triggered by what you just said. The first is very personal. I mean, I've been asked by people, oh, but do you know the judicial system, and what if it's politicized, and what if you lose? I mean, there are certain battles that even if when they are lost, and if they are lost, it was worth fighting. And this is one of those, because it's really for justice with capital J. And the other thing is, isn't it always like that when there are moments of such historical relevance like now, isn't it that those who are at the forefront of the struggle, and it's not me here, it's the Palestinian, and there's so many who are struggling with them, aren't they also fighting for others?
Yes.
In the sense, these are struggles that allow us to test and advance the universality of rights.
Right.
And this is what it's at stake here. My freedom is not complete unless the freedom of others is also there. The reason why Nelson Mandela used to say our struggle is not over until the Palestinian struggle is also over, in the sense we will not be free until Palestine is free, is because this is settler colonialism in its purest, crudest, and most brutal form. And it's erasing an entire people in the body, in the spirit, through the cultural symbols, and the very tortured identity, because it's painful to be a Palestinian, although there is also a lot of pride and a lot of beauty. But the Palestinians have experienced for 100 years so much harm. And this is the point where we can say enough. I often say to the Palestinians, I'm sorry, because we were not able to stop the genocide on time, to save more lives. But we are doing everything we can to make sure that this is the last crime that Israel and the system that is behind Israel commits against you. And I really stand behind it.
Absolutely. Francesca, I think that's a beautiful way to end. Best of luck with your case. We are all with you, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.